Hi, my name is Dave Belcher. I'm the community manager at Classical Guitar Corner, and in this video I'd like to talk with you about a practice method called spot practice. So tell me if you have heard this advice before. Slow down. Slow practice is an essential tool for learning any musical instrument. Classical guitar is no exception to this rule. Slow practice gives us the time that we need to make difficult movements. Our left hand, for instance, when it needs to move from one position to another, at fast tempos it might be too much to manage. But when we use slow practice, we can move from one place to another effortlessly. It also helps us identify problems. So if we're playing a passage and something just goes wrong that we weren't intending, we don't know what it is, slowing down the tempo can really help us figure out why we made that particular mistake. So slow practice is something everyone should be using in their practice routine. It's a great tool. However, have you ever been playing slow practice in the practice room and it just wasn't quite slow enough? That even though you slowed things down quite a bit, you still weren't able to play that passage, say that left-hand shift, accurately. Well, our fingers, they have a mind of their own. We don't use our fingers in everyday activities doing movements like this or like this. They're not used, our fingers, our muscles, our tendons, they're not used to those movements. And so when we call upon them to make all of these difficult movements that we do on the classical guitar, they're probably going to resist, even when you slow things down. They're just not used to that way of moving yet. You have to train them to develop those muscles, to do what you want them to do and not what they want to do. So in order to develop that muscle memory, slow practice is one thing that can really help. However, if you're slowing things down and it's still just not quite slow enough and your fingers are lagging behind or doing whatever they want to do, then there's another method that comes into play that can be very useful. It's something that is called spot practice. I learned the term from Martha Masters in her book, Reaching the Next Level. I have a bit of a different take on it, so let's just take a look at the left hand and we'll go through it step by step so you can see how it's done. Now, spot practice is a lot like slow practice. In slow practice, if we come across a difficult section, a treble passage, where we're continually making mistakes or we make mistakes at the same place most of the time, then we can slow the tempo down to really give ourselves the time we need to make that shift or to work through that treble spot. But sometimes, even playing it slowly, we just can't quite get our fingers where they need to go. Even slowly, it's not enough time for our fingers. So what spot practice does is it removes the tempo altogether. So taking this little shift at the beginning of the B section from the Minuet by Christian Petzold from J.S. Bach's Notebook for Anna Magdalena Bach. This is in the level 2 repertoire of Classical Guitar Corner. Right here at measure 17, this shift, if you can't make this shift with slow practice, then what we do with spot practice is the following. We play just right up to the shift to give some context, and then we stop, pause, and we tell our fingers where they need to go next. We know that this is where we're going to end up, with our 3 here and our 4 here. So from this position, we can begin to prepare our fingers and say, okay, 3, I need you to go here. 4 just played here. So we don't want the 4 sticking out, and we don't want it tucking in. We want it to be ready to play down here. So after it plays, it should hover right over the string. So we play the little bit that comes before it, tell our fingers where they need to go, prepare them over the strings, and then begin to move, land the shift, and play. It's that simple. And then you repeat the same process over and over until it's very comfortable and you feel like you can do it at a slow, steady tempo now. So let's go over that one more time. Stop, tell your fingers where they need to go, prepare, begin to move and land the shift. And if you can't do it, then you need to go even slower. If you need to go at a snail's pace, that's okay. We all have to start from somewhere. Once you get it down and you really feel like, all right, this feels comfortable now. I know exactly where my fingers need to go. There's no excess movement. Your 2's not sticking out and going all over the place. Your 4 is hovering over the string where it should be. Your 3 is hovering over where it should be. Then, once you get there and everything's comfortable, you bring slow practice back in. And you start with the slow, steady tempo. Just that much. Again, repeat. Now, if you don't land it, then that means you're not quite ready for slow practice yet, and you need to go back to spot practice. But once you do, turn that metronome on at a very slow tempo for slow practice, and then work it up to your target tempo. Now, I want to mention two technical things very fast about making difficult shifts in the left hand with spot practice. Now, you notice when I shift, my 1 stays down as I shift. And the reason for that is that this G, which is the last eighth note of measure 17, it's an eighth note. It's not a 16th note. So we don't want to cut it off early in order to make the shift. We want all the notes to sound for their full duration. So one of the things you'll have to do in the choreography of preparing your fingers is also shifting as you're holding the G, shifting as you're holding the G, and only lifting it as you get there. So that's the first thing. Don't cut off notes early in order to allow a shift to be possible. We want to hold down those notes for their full duration, or at least as long as we can. So don't allow the technical issues to sacrifice musicality. A second thing, making a big shift like this, where we move from here to here, we want our left hand thumb to just move with our hand. It should just be there as a stable support, gliding along the back of the neck. What we don't want is for it to stay in place like that, squeezing the neck. That can cause, not only will your hand get displaced, but it can cause a lot of tension in your thumb. Right here, and especially this big muscle. And this big muscle, it gets tired very quickly. So what that will do is, because we're working on slow repetitions, if you're working on slow repetitions with tension, then you're building into your muscle memory tension. Your hand's going to hurt every time you play it, and it's going to remember that it hurts, and it's going to make it tense up even more. It's not a good thing. So we want to play relaxed. Use your thumb just to glide along the back of the neck. And you can try this. Just remove your thumb altogether. As you shift, lift off your thumb. You should be able to make that shift without the thumb. And then put it back without pressure, allowing it to just give a little bit of a stable support. And that should make the shift very smooth. Now, the most important part about spot practice is accuracy. You remember earlier we talked about how our fingers have minds of their own. They might want to go one way while we're telling them to go a different way. And if slow practice doesn't give your fingers quite enough time to make those difficult movements they need to make accurately, then spot practice can become an essential tool in your toolbox, in your technique toolkit, so to speak. So what we want to avoid in the practice room is playing through a mistake. If you come across a mistake in your playing, you should stop. Use slow practice to identify what the problem is, and if slow practice isn't enough to fix the problem, then use spot practice to give your fingers the time that they need to make those movements and make quality repetitions accurately every time. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you found that useful. I know that spot practice has become an essential part of my practice routine. It's helped with so many difficult left-hand shifts that I couldn't otherwise have made without spot practice. So I hope it benefits you as well. Now, if you'd like to learn more about Classical Guitar Corner Academy, then I urge you to go to classicalguitarcorner.com/join. Classical Guitar Corner Academy is an online guitar school made up of members all over the world of varying ages and playing abilities, and it's an excellent place to learn to play classical guitar. So thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.